Yes, dear, we're making more progress now. Yes, dear, we're making more progress now. Yes, dear, we're making more progress now. Still have a long way to go. They promised to bring us more revenue and quality. Promised to bring us more revenue and quality. Promised to bring us more revenue and quality. Instead is now on its way.
Hello everybody, this is Brian O'Haron. As I told you over the last few weeks, today would be my Highland Lake special. It's actually about the town and the lake, so you'll be seeing a picture of the town hall superimposed over Highland Lake from time to time tonight as we go through the program. There's a couple things I'd like to point out before I go through the agenda. One is, be sure to vote on Saturday between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. at the Pearson School on the proposed 5.41% budget increase. I do see some signs up that I think have the wrong number on them, but anyway, that's pretty much what it is. And try to get out there and vote whichever way you are inclined. The important thing is to vote. Bring all the members of your family with you that can vote, and try to make it a good turnout for this budget. Now, tonight, I'd like to, since I'm going to be talking about Highland Lake, I'd like to dedicate this program to Lydia and her mother and father. They enjoy the lake. They live in the Highland Lake District, I'm pretty sure. They're right on the outskirts of it, if not. And they do enjoy the lake. They ride their bicycle around. And one of the reasons I'm having this program tonight is because we do want to preserve the lake, so that when people like Lydia grow up, they can use the lake just like we do, and that we can keep it in good shape. So this is to you, Lydia, your mom and dad, and I hope you continue to enjoy this lake for many years to come. Now for the agenda, the first thing I'm going to just talk a bit about is the purpose of this program. I'm going to have a short disclaimer. You always have to have a disclaimer here. Background. A little bit about my background, not much. Assumptions for tonight. And then I'm going to go into the town problem, which I've written papers about and distributed them all over town. The lake problem, which most of the information I garnered through attending public hearings on the development projects in the wetland commissions, and participating in on one commission that was trying to do some dock and mooring work. And so most of it's all factual information from town records. And then I'm going to come up with what I think is a practical solution to this dilemma that I'm going to present to you this evening. None of this is new information to anybody who has been watching the program over the last year. But if you're from New York, New Jersey, or some other, Fairfield County or somewhere, and you're not here in the winter, you may not be familiar with this information. So the purpose tonight is, purpose of this program is to emphasize the fact that the town of Winchester and the Highland Lake District, it's called HLD. The Highland Lake District, now put this picture up for a second, the Highland Lake District is more than just the people who live on the lake, the 3 bays of the lake. It also extends up into the hills here and out into side streets. So it's a whole area called the Highland Lake District. And that's what that's known to the town. I don't know the exact boundaries. It would probably take me 6 months to figure it all out, and it's not worth it for this particular exercise. So that's the Highland Lake District that we're going to be talking about tonight. It includes the lake, and includes roads around the lake, and hills around the lake, and that kind of thing, right? So that's what we're going to be partly talking about tonight. The Highland Lake District share a symbiotic past and future, both past and future. This lake has been around for a long, long time. This town has owned the lake. I guess the state owns part of it, but the town, it's the town's lake, basically. And it doesn't belong to anybody else. It belongs to the town, and some of the water parts of it belong to the state, and there's a little confusion and all that. But basically, that's what it has. Long before any of the existing residents were there, 100 years ago, the lake was there. And it was used by the town to run the factories and for other reasons. And it was used by the farmers all over the lake. There's still some undercrossings around under the roads for cows to get down to the lake the way they did in the old days. I don't think they do that anymore, but that's what used to happen when they went down that way. So, but these two entities, one of which is part of the town, the Lake District, they have a symbiotic relationship. Both have many problems and many opportunities, and are financially reliant upon each other. And that's what I want to go through tonight. I want to go through a bit of that, how they are financially reliant upon each other, and why they need each other for financial success. Disclaimer. The numbers and information utilized in this program have been gleaned from various town documents and town meetings over the last 3 or 4 years. I've looked at information that's older than 3 or 4 years, but I've been around here crawling around the town for about 3 or 4 years now in my spare time trying to get information, attending meetings, attending public hearings, reading documents, talking to people in the town hall. I always tell people, everybody says, why are you always down in the town hall? They think I'm trying to undermine them or something, but I'm not down there to undermine anybody. I'm down there to find out information. How does the town work? What is the relationship between the lake and the town? That kind of thing. The information is pretty accurate, but any mistakes are mine, and mine alone. If you spot an inaccuracy that is valid, let me know, and I will correct on the next program. Now, when I say valid, I mean you check out the facts first and make sure that you're happy that you've got a fact, and then bring it to me, and then I'll double check it again with the town people, and then if I'm wrong, I'll say so, and I'll change my approach, because that's very important. The intention here is to help create an environment for success. I've talked on this program a long time about it, creating an environment for success. The name of the program is Planning for Success. So we need to create an environment for success. We don't have an environment for success right now, according to many meetings and people I've gone to. Other people say the same thing. I'm not the only one who says this kind of thing. So my intention is to help create an environment for success where the information that we're using here is changing from month to month. But the essence of what I'm going to say remains the same. For example, one of the developments I'm going to talk about later started out with like 370 units. Now it's down to 225 units. Went from like 370 to 270. Now it's down to 225. So things are changing through the land use boards, and the numbers are changing and all. But the essence of it all is still the same. And will present an excellent opportunity to our town. My background, I'm not going to go into it much tonight. There's plenty of papers floating around town with my background on it. Everybody asks me for my background. Whenever you do anything around here, they say, let's see your resume. So I put out my resume, and I written in papers what my background is. But basically, I am a retired corporate executive and a local resident, and have considerable experience as a corporate executive and system analyst. I was also a president and CEO for 7 years of an environmental system measurement company in San Diego, California. It was a private company, and I had a couple partners in that business. So I do know quite a bit about, I'm not an expert like some of the experts we bring in to talk about plants and things in the water, but I do know a lot about it, and I do know a lot about the measuring equipment and how these things are approached. Probably more than most people around here. We have owned our property in Winsted since 1974. Assumptions. There are many positive points to be emphasized about the town of Winsted and its Highland Lake. I could sit here for a week and talk about all the positive points about Highland Lake and all the positive points about Winsted. But on this program, I don't have time for that. What I want to do is focus on the areas that we need to improve to make it a better town, and to make it so that when Lydia gets to be in her 20s and 30s, she can enjoy this lake as much as your children do, or my children do, and my grandchildren do, and my wife and I did when we were young. So that's the purpose of this program. Tonight's program of Planning for Success, which is this program, will deal only with the existing problems with both the lake and the town, and offer a suggestion to improve the situation. Town employees at all levels, in my opinion, provide an excellent service with the money they have available. It's like your own personal family. You do the best you can for your children and your grandchildren, yourself and your mom and dad and your uncles and aunts and anybody else with the resources that you have available. And some of those resources may be just your personality and your generosity. The Highland Lake volunteers try to do their best with their experience and the money that they have at their disposal. So I'm really not trying to throw any stones here at either the town or the lake or its volunteers or the employees. I think everybody is trying their best and is doing their best within the resources that they have available. There are various philosophies and viewpoints in the town, and no one group represents them all on any given issue. So there's no one group we can turn to. You're going to see we have a wide variety of problems. So there's no one group that has all the answers. What we need, like the EDC is trying to do now, is pull all this stuff together and have a team effort towards solving and resolving our problems. And that's also what the selectmen are trying to do. There are various philosophies and viewpoints at the lake. And no one group represents all the people at the lake on any issue. A few years ago, I went out and I did a petition around the lake and talked to a lot of lake homeowners about an issue with dock and mooring, and I found out that not everybody agrees with any particular group on the lake. They all have their own opinions. On some things they agree, and on other things they don't agree. So there's about 580, I think, houses around the lake, more in the Highland Lake District, but just around the lake on the water, there's a good 500 or so, or more. I don't know the exact number, but they all have their own views on everything. So nobody can stand up at any meeting and say, I represent 400 groups on the lake or anything like that, or just because people are members of organizations doesn't mean everybody in the organization agrees with them. I found that out the hard way when I did my petition, and I was, much to my surprise and much to my happiness as well. I was happy to see that people had a mind of their own, and they wanted to understand the problems and the facts, and then they wanted to sign the petition or not sign the petition, whatever it may be. Facts. I want to talk a bit about facts because I try to deal always with the facts. Not always successful because it's very difficult to obtain facts. It takes a lot of time to work with facts. But I try to seek out the facts and try to deal with facts whenever possible, because I'm a systems analyst. I do many things, but when I started, I was a mathematician and systems analyst in the computer industry, and then I grew up through that. But whenever possible, if an important error is pointed out to me, in my fax, I will fix it. First, I'll check it out and make sure it's accurate, and then I'll fix it. Now, preparing for a program like this, where you deal with facts instead of just supposition and accusation, preparing for a program like this is time-consuming. It takes most of my week. And it isn't easy. It's very difficult. You have to deal with a lot of personalities. You have to interfere with people when they're trying to do a day's work, and try to be as unobtrusive as possible when getting these facts. To read a lot of things. You have to dig into the documents in the town hall. So obtaining facts is often like peeling the layers of an onion. And I do have an onion here. Matter of fact, I got 2 onions here. And the reason I brought this onion, I use this around the world when I gave courses a lot, because you need to often question people as a systems analyst, and question them many, many times. And that's like peeling the layers of an onion. For example, if you say, somebody from a lake once told me, cement is bad for the lake. So I went out and I checked with environmentalists around the country and the various cement organizations, and they all say cement is not bad for the lake. Cement is inert. So you go back to the person who said cement is bad for the lake, and they say, oh, well, it takes up space. So then you have to go, and the lake is owned by the state, so you shouldn't be using the space. So you go to the state, you ask a lot of questions, and you find out, well, they don't really have anything against it. Some people in the state would say, yes, that's okay. Other people would say, no, we prefer not to see it happen for many, many, many reasons. And that's why you go back and they say, oh yeah, but then you're taking up, if you dig a footing for that, you are endangering the microorganisms in the lake. And then you go to people and they say, well, if you do it when the lake is frozen, doesn't hurt too much, and you should be able to do this. So it goes on and on. So that's called peeling the layers of an onion. So I want you to know that I try to deal with facts here. We don't always get the facts. I spend a lot of time peeling the layers of the onions and everywhere. And when you deal with certain types of places where you don't have to peel the layers of an onion, you can get straight facts right away. And then the other thing is, when you hear from experts, sometimes you have to go to other experts in the same field, and they will say just the opposite of what an expert says. And then you got to try to figure out which of these experts is right. So that's very difficult. So I want you to know that I do take that approach, and I do try to check out as many facts as I can, to go to the source wherever I can. I go down to the people that are in charge down at the town hall, and to make sure I have my facts right, or if not, I'll change them before I even present them on the program. So often you may have to eliminate layers of reasons. Sometimes they're maybes, and sometimes they're plain excuses with people trying to lead you in the wrong direction until you get to the facts. The facts must always be checked and rechecked with experts until they are verified or proven false. This is time-consuming, hard work, and it helps to be a systems analyst. Now I'm going to talk a bit about the town of Winchester problem, because they're half of this symbiotic relationship we're going to be talking about tonight. I've written papers on this, and I have a bibliography if anybody's interested in reading the whole paper. These are just snippets from the papers. But over the past 10 years, the town of Winchester's net grand list has grown at an average about 3.52%. The net grand list is the amount of the grand list in town, the amount of property that people own that is taxable, that you can tax. And then a mill rate is figured out for how much of that grand list they will need for taxes. But anyway, so that has grown at about 3.52% over the last 10 years, or $16,026,447 a year. About 1%, 0.90%, or 25% of the 3.52% has come from additions to the taxpayer base. And that's very important to remember. What we need are additions to our taxpayer base. The only other alternative is to take it from the existing taxpayers. And that means that if you don't get additions to the taxpayer base, then the existing taxpayers shoulder all the load. And I even go one step further and say we must have profitable additions to the taxpayer base. Taxpayer additions that do not consume more from the town than they give to the town. So So additions to the taxpayer base are upgrades, additions that you do by permits, upgrades that you do by permits, money comes in, and then you're taxed on those if you had a porch or a third floor or a garage. Additional housing, new houses that come to town, buy a piece of land and build a new housing. That's why people are trying to encourage people to sell town property so other people can come in and build on it and pay taxes. And additional businesses that come to town, providing more come than leave. They build a building or they don't build a building, but it's very important that they do build a building, or if they remodel a building, then we will make some money on that because their tax base will go up a little bit. And additional industries to town, so we'll talk a bit more later about that. The remainder, or 75% of the 3.52%, comes from property revaluation. That we just went through one of those this year. That happens every 5 years now. The state has changed the rules a while back. It used to happen every 10 years. So until this latest valuation, the revaluations occurred every 10 years. So in the last 5 years, we've had 2 revaluations. And I'm going to show you now the effect of that. In the 2003, which was a 10-year revaluation, we hadn't had one for 10 years until 2003. That was a 10-year valuation, and that was, the increase there was about, I got a page missing there somewhere. I always do that. But anyway, that rose, the 203 rose our tax base by 26%. For the average property in town was 26% over 10 years. The valuation went up. The revaluation that this year was the first 5-year revaluation, and it's called the statistical revaluation because they don't go into your house for it. That revaluation increased the average property value by 40%, just over 5 years, and caused a lot of interest in this town. So, or in 2008, the first 5-year revaluation, every other 5 years, now we will have a revaluation, and every other one will be a statistical revaluation. Next time in 5 years when they do a revaluation, and the property values could go down too in a revaluation, they did in Torrington a few years back, then they go into your house in the next one. Whether they go into every house in town, I do not know. But basically, they have a right to go in your house, measure all your rooms, count all your bathrooms, and do all that. So that'll happen again in 5 years. The town budget, while all this has been happening, the town budget has grown at an average of 3.94%, or $1,026,000 per year over the last 9 years. I only had information for the last 9 years, so here I use 9 years. The property taxes, over the last 9 years, the property taxes have increased at an average of 3.3% per year. So when people say to me, Brian, you don't understand, the reason we're being held back as a town is because of the Taxpayers Association, I don't totally agree with that, because over the last 10 years we've averaged about 4% here in taxes to the people that live here now. So that isn't too bad. You might be able to get to 5%, you might even be able to get the average 6%, but you would be, for our town in the environmental shape it's in right now, it'd be pretty hard to get 5-6% on average over the years. Education, our education in town is expensive, and it's now about 61% of the amount to be raised from taxes. So that's a very interesting figure. The town is also dependent on various, apparently unpredictable, state of Connecticut grants, and a good percentage. And they're a good percentage of the budget. These grants may or may not continue to flow in the future at the same advantageous rates as they have in the past. And we are vulnerable there as a town. We get quite a bit on the grant side because of we're considered to be grant-worthy here for various statistical reasons in the town. These statistics have not been enough, assuming responsible spending, to adequately maintain the town's infrastructure and provide certain service needs and desires. The town has limited resources. We're treading water. We're not getting ahead. And I'm going to point out a few examples of that in a few minutes. The town does not have much money to spend at Highland Lake on a regular basis to help them solve some of the problems that they have. Now, examples of problems in the town, for those of you who aren't here all year round and probably don't know a lot of this, millions of dollars are needed to remedy neglected maintenance and upgrades to 3 of the 4 existing schools. Gilbert, the high school, private high school, is accepted for now from my numbers here because the school is relatively new. They may need some money too. I just don't know if they do or they don't. But the other 3 schools certainly do. Millions of dollars are needed to remedy neglected maintenance and upgrades to the fire department, the town hall, the police department, and I'm sorry, I got the fire department in twice, but roads, soldiers monument. Someday money will be needed probably for the senior center and things like that. So we're talking millions here. The last year they tried to float a bond issue for 43 or 4 million, can't remember, over to be paid back over 20 years, which had 13 million in interest. So we're talking a lot of money here just to fix up our existing infrastructure. All that money from the bond issue wouldn't have made us a penny. All it would have done was fix up the existing infrastructure. We'd have better schools, more modern schools, more modern firehouses, more modern police department, things like that. But it wouldn't help us to get any revenue into town. Millions possibly needed to remedy the neglect of the old factory buildings you see around town when you drive around, and the first impression people get when they drive up Route 44 through our town. People do like the work that Friends of Main Street's done on the median strip, but the first things that catch your eye are the factories, the old factory buildings, and environment in the center of town and elsewhere. The inability to provide enough material for public works to fix potholes around the lake and around town, pave streets, repair bridges, etc., on a consistent basis because they don't have enough money. The budget doesn't have enough money for them to do that. So it's very hard to do the work if you don't have the materials, the tar, all the things you need, cement, and everything you need to be able to do the job. The inability to attract enough major retail businesses and much needed industry to this town. The industrial parks we have 2 of, they're pretty much full right now. There may be 1 vacancy in one of the industrial parks. Takes many years, probably 15 to 20 from the start of getting an industrial park established to getting it filled up and getting all the tax money in. So that's a long-term situation. The relatively low test scores in the town schools can hinder our ability to attract industry and young executives to town, I am told. Young executives want to make sure that if they're working hard and a lot of hours and traveling around the world, that their children get a good, substantial education. And that's the first thing they look for before they take a job. And I've been told that by a past head of the EDC and other people. So it's not Brian speaking. And I know when I travel the world, I always made sure that my children were in excellent schools, and then I traveled the hour or 2 to work every day and back so they could be educated in schools that I felt very comfortable with. And when I found that I had them in a school that wasn't up to our standards, I moved them to another one. The population has stagnated. I don't know how many years you go back, but we've been at 10,500 for a long, long time in this town. Various industrial skills have been reduced. We used to be a very skillful town. Now we have less skills, and that's hard to attract industry when you have less skills. Not impossible, but it's harder. We have to work on that. There was some discussion about that at the EDC on television a week ago. Various industry skills have been reduced, if not lost, to other communities. And that's very important for people who want to bring industry to town. They want to make sure the schools are good for their employees' children, and they want to make sure that they have the skills in the area, in the town, to be able to do the work they need. The declining student population at the Gilbert School, mainly because of the loss of many students from Heartland in recent years. I'm told that Heartland gives vouchers now to their families, and they can go to any school they want to within reason. I don't know all the exact details, but so we have lost quite a few students from Heartland in recent years. So to a certain extent, that's helped force our cost per average student up. So we have a relatively high cost. I say relatively. Other people are higher, other people are lower. We have a relatively high cost of education in Winsted. The inability of the two major political parties, the minor political party, and the Taxpayers Association, parties I guess minor, and the Taxpayers Association to work together harmoniously with the town leaders. That's one of the problems we have in the town as well that has to be worked on. And we get a lot of bad publicity, and the town business people don't like that. You know, if you're a businessman and you have a business, you don't want bad publicity to get out about your business because you're trying to attract customers. So you have to be very careful about, same with your town. If you're trying to attract industry to town, and you're trying to attract developments to town, and you're trying to attract businesses of all sorts to town, then you have to have a good image, and you have to work on it. Right now, we don't have that in the town, which is, in my opinion. Continual locally generated public relations in the newspapers. We get a lot of bad press, some of it generated by our own leaders, and that's not good. And we have to work on that, and that's another complaint that the local businessmen made at some of the local businessmen made at a summit meeting here a month or two ago. We have somebody from the state of Connecticut came to this summit meeting and said that Connecticut had a relatively slow land use board decision-making on large developments and projects in Connecticut. And he actually said that in Connecticut, we take about a year in our land use board to do what other areas do in 3 months. So I've just taken his word for that. I don't know for sure. Haven't had time to go into all that yet. But that was what he told all our local leaders when he came to town. So, and then locally in Winsted, that's also a concern by our business people. The inability to fund the Highland Lake maintenance and improvements when needed, etc., is also one of the town's problems, because the town is, again, a symbiotic partner of the lake. They get a lot of their income from the lake. They get a lot of people attracted to town from the lake. You know, people used to come to see me from all over the world. I would take them to various restaurants. I'd take them to the stores. They would always load up on things before they left, not only Winston in the area. And once I went to a land use board and said I wanted to add a porch onto my house because I have a lot of guests coming. They spend a lot of money in town, and they kind of laughed at me and threw me out. So that was a concern. I was going to spend like $100,000 on a new thing. Now, eventually, I did get what I needed over time, but it was a shock to me at the time. Now I'm going to talk about some problems and potential problems at Highland Lake, and high taxes due to the relatively high property valuations. Highland Lake is seen by New Yorkers in New England and Fairfield County and Boston and Hartford and other areas around, even other states, as a resort area. And it happens to be one of the least expensive resort areas between here and New York City. I mean, you get closer to New York City, the property values are double what they are here, maybe triple in some cases. So, and it is a lake, and it is now kind of a resort area. It's not there for the factories anymore. So, and it's there for not only people of Winchester, but for the state. They have a boat launch there, and people in the state are allowed to fish there and bring their boats in within a certain limitations and enjoy the lake. The town there's beaches up there where people can enjoy the lake, so that's that. The high taxes are due to relatively high property valuations, which may go down in the next revaluation, and they may go up. It depends what happens in the economy. And often people that buy around the lake, although it is slow in sales now, are often not concerned too much about the economy if they've already made it and made their bundle. So, but the economy does affect things. Things will slow down like they do everywhere else, and then perhaps in 10, 20 years start going again. I don't know. But the Highland Lake District is now approximately 25% of the town's grand list. So the town is very dependent upon this money from the lake, and it's very important. Some believe that the lake does not receive its fair share of the services from the town for the amount of taxes paid by the Highland Lake District landowners. And this is controversial. Some people think we get a lot of services. We get all the roads plowed. We get them salted in the wintertime. A lot of the people now, a certain percentage of the people now do live around the lake year-round. There are more year-round homes there than there were when I was a child. But there are people who think perhaps we should get more police protection. Perhaps we should get more money to help clear the lake and clean the lake, things like that. So I want to say, though, that the service we do get from the town, we can argue till the cows come home about whether we get enough or not. The service that is received is excellent. And every time I've needed a service from the town, I've been able to get excellent service. And when I go downtown, even for information from the town, I get anything I need, and I get it pronto, and the people are always very, very easy to deal with, and I'm happy about that. Next, the lake receives minimum allocations in the town budget each year. As a result, they're falling behind up there in maintaining and prevention of various possible water quality deterioration. Now, it's very important, of course, that the water quality is kept up to date. People at the lake are very concerned about a lot of things up there, but the most important thing, in my opinion, and especially since I have a background in this kind of thing, is the water quality. And a lot of things affect the water quality, and there's a lot of things that people think affects the water quality, which may not affect the water quality. Now, there is a 60-page report that has just been handed in to the town by George Knockline, who's a very, very good environmental scientist. He was used by various people for the public hearings for the developments that are going to may or may not be coming to town. But it's called the Evaluation of the Highland Lake level drawdown. They're looking at that now with the commission and to see what's affecting the lake, whether drawdowns are affecting the lake or not affecting the lake. And George Knockline is a good person. That'll be coming out. I will get a copy of that, and I will read that, and I might report on it on another Highland Lake special towards the end of the summer, if it's worth doing. I don't know. But it will affect everybody on the lake, because right now they draw the water down 8 feet every 4 years, and then they have 3 years of 3-foot drawdowns, and then now they're going to be changing that, maybe not, but we should be careful. So some examples of the lake stuff. The phosphate count has been increasing in water at Highland Lake for one reason or another over the last decade. The last real exhaustive study of the lake was done around 1980-ish, 76 and 80, and that time, I haven't got maybe not have exact years, but that is available. The state did a study. It was very exhaustive. It takes many years to do the study, and you have to do it at different seasons and different depths and different temperatures and all that kind of thing to properly do the study. So a costly and time-consuming study is recommended as necessary, not recommended by me, but recommended by the environmentalists, is necessary to find the reason why and how to abate and or remedy the situation. So that's something that, it takes a few years to do and costs some money, because you got to have experts doing it, and they do all the things they do. I don't know whether they have the state do it or private environmentalists or what, but one way or another, that would need to be done. I do think someone's looking into that, but again, it takes money to do it. Silt continues to fill the coves around the lake, coming from the catch basins. Now, they are upgrading the catch basins. They have just received a grant in 2056 to do some more. That'll be happening pretty quick. And the town's doing a good job at updating these catch basins and cleaning them out every year. They all have to be cleaned out every year, maybe more than once a year, I don't know, yet to be replaced from the dirt roads. They're getting stuff silt from the dirt roads around the lake. If you drive around the lake, you'll see a lot of dirt roads coming down in. And even where they put in catch basins, some of the local people tell me, Brian, the catch basins are doing a good job, but we're still getting a lot of silt coming in from these roads. And then what they do is it comes down to dirt roads and some of the driveways, and it goes over the road and washes into the lake. Silt also comes in from streams, such as Sucker Brook, that need work by some funded effort. Either the Army Corps of Engineers, or we fund it, or in the town, or some other state funding. But that needs some work. It has for years, and we keep hearing that, well, perhaps that can't be done because we can't get the Army Corps of Engineers to do the work. They haven't got the money, whatever the reason may be at the particular time. But that needs to be done eventually, because a friend of mine had his daughter water skiing a couple of years ago, or not a daughter, but a niece or nephew, and the skis hit the sandbar and splattered it all over her. That's how tough it is in that Suckerbrook Cove. And in the wintertime, when the water's down 8 feet or 3 feet even, you could see that. So it's filling up. When I went around with my petition a few years ago, almost every cove, somebody told me, this cove is filling up. Coves that I used to swim in at state beaches when I was a kid, at town beaches when I was a kid. One lady came by my house last year with a fellow walker and said, "Brian, can I swim off your deck?" And I said, "Of course you can swim off my deck." And I said, "Why do you need to swim off my deck?" "Well, it's so hard to swim in our cove now because it's full of weeds and it's full of plant growth. So it's kind of hard for these people to swim there." So that is happening, and it takes money to do all that work and to fix all that up. Eventually, some of the coves, and perhaps some other areas of the lake, may need dredging at a large private or public expense. I know at least one resident has gone and got a permit to be able to dredge in front of his property personally. It's a little tricky because he has to leave the equipment on the bank, and he can only dredge as far as he can reach with the mechanical equipment. But so there's going to be, now when I say this, don't anybody get too scared. I mean, this might be 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 30 years from now. I don't know when. But we're not going in the right direction as far as silt coming into the lake. We are making progress, but we have a long way to go. The lake suffers from the existence of invasive plants that must be treated, either by drawdowns, and there's still some confusion about how much the drawdowns help here in this area. It does help a little bit, I guess, but they needed. Sometimes we put in we put things into the lake called dicot. I don't really want to call it a poison because I don't know exactly what it is, but it does maim these milfoil plants, invasive milfoil plants, and it doesn't kill them. It doesn't get to the roots, so they grow back and grow back over time. So it's a continuous problem. They are looking with George Knockline into that and seeing, how big a problem it is, and what more may be necessary for that. So the next thing is there is an increased number of boats and other water vehicles that possibly stir up the lake bed and possibly import unwanted plants. They may not be doing enough now. We don't wash boats when they come into our boat launch. They bring in whatever is on there, stuck on their hull from any other lake. And so far, I guess we've been pretty lucky. I have talked to the state about this, and they've said that we don't think we are in the position yet where we have to wash boats at the boat launch. And that was about a year ago. I don't think anything's changed since then. The roads are salted during the winter. Some salt finds its way to the lake, and the salt can kill trees along the road. Been known to do so. You'll see a lot of people cutting down trees along the road, and when I talk to the tree experts that are cutting them down, they always say the tree's either dead or dying fast from the salt. Now, we do put less salt around, and we don't put any sand around anymore, I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, over the last year or so. So we're making progress in that area as well. But the salt can kill trees along the road over a period of time. Although a responsible effort is made, the Highland Lake water quality can most likely be more professionally evaluated, in my opinion. If we had money and we could spend more on evaluating the lake every year by professionals, then that probably would be good for us. But again, you need money. Now, as far as circulating pipes embedded in causeways, they may have clogged over the years. When you get around these coves and if there's causeways, it's nice to have the water go through the causeway through pipes, and so it circulates the water. And some of these may have clogged over the years and may need attention by the Public Works Department. Some residents believe that more ordinance, law and regulation enforcement in one form or another on or off the water may be needed. This is a big concern at the lake, whether it's accurate or it's really needed or not. There's all kinds of opinion. It tends to be one of the most talked about subjects on the lake. And that, if that is true, then maybe the police need more people in the summer to help. Maybe the inspectors need more help, more money to help. But everything kind of boils down to money and how much money is allocated. As far as I can see, somebody in the last year tried to put a private boat control together where they just went out and tried to help on the lake. And it said this year in the paper that they didn't get enough volunteers to continue it again. So it's a tough thing. So now, what's the most probable solution? First, I think before I do that, I want to talk about, I just put them out of order here, so I'm going to move them in into my space here, and then I'll talk about the most probable solution. The first thing I want to say is that before I talk about the most probable solution, I just put them out of order here. Sorry about that. The options that are available here for the town and the lake to get money enough to be able to solve all these problems we have here in town and on the lake, and future problems, prevent them, start saving now, so if we ever have to dredge any parts of the lake, we have the money saved in an account. Or, in order to fix up the schools, we save some money up and go there. But these are the options. You can raise taxes by all the existing taxpayers. That's very unpopular and difficult to do in Winsted. We have a strong taxpayers association, and they've been able to keep the taxes over the last 10 years down to an average of 4%. As a result, a lot of things have been neglected. It isn't just, I'm not blaming anybody for this, but because we don't have more money for one reason or another, all those neglections have happened. We can borrow money. When you borrow money, you can get float bonds, you can get bank loans, et cetera, borrow from Uncle Ernie, whatever. But then you got to pay interest. You got to pay interest for 20 years. So you're really adding a lot, and all that interest you pay, you can't do other things with. So that kind of should be a last resort, but it is an option. And the next is to add additional, by the way, when you do that, you just add to this, raise the taxes, right? One of these things they're struggling with this year is they don't like the fact that we have this tax increase this year. Part of it's to pay for the 2006-5 bond issue, which did a lot of good around town. Add additional taxpayers to share the burden, which I think is the way to go. And those taxpayers can come from business, additional taxpayers, industry, or residential. The next is grants. We're always getting grants one way or the other, but when we get a grant, we also have to put up our share of that. Say 30% of the money has to come from us, and in order to get that, now we've been raising taxes to do that. And then donations. We don't get any donations. If you go down to the town and look at the donation line in the town budget, it's usually zero. Most probable solution. Increase the profitable tax base of the town over the medium to long term, 5 to 15 years. The most likely candidates for that are two big developments that are going up on the hills along the Route 8 corridor between Winston and Torrington. They're not really going up. They're trying to get their permits squared away so they can begin to build. One of them is called the Highland Ridge Estates and St. Anne's Country Club Development, 456 age-restricted units with a big golf course, 18-hole golf course and a clubhouse and other amenities up there, swimming pool and thing like that, which will bring millions of dollars into our town and our economy, not only in Winsted, but in the whole area. The Aurora Estates Development, which is, by the way, this Highland Ridge Estates has received permission from planning and zoning, and in the wetlands, it's still waiting for permission from the Army Corps of Engineers and the State Department of Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, mainly because of the golf course and how that's going to be handled. The Aurora Estates Development is 125 mixed-use units. That's a compromise that's been offered by, actually discussed between the town and the developers. They have been refused this twice already. They have put in with the Litchfield Court, they put in an appeal, and they're now talking about a compromise. That'd be 125 mixed-use units. That means you can have children, and that would be about 35 children, which would go into our school systems, and I think we have room to handle them. And 100 age-restricted units, which are 55 and older, no children allowed. That's the most probable solution for us, and I'm going to flip this. I got these in here twice somewhere. According to expert public testimony on record in the town hall, you could get this in the inland wetlands and in the planning and development department. The records down there would fill half a room, but just on these two developments. But if you go down there and ask for the information, you can get it. According to the expert public hearing testimony on record in the town hall, and that means the town had experts, the lake had experts, and the developer had experts. Developers' experts were from Yale, actually, and they say that the project should not harm Highland Lake. Matter of fact, they even said if they didn't do any mitigation, they shouldn't harm Highland Lake. The Highland Ridge Estates and St. Anne's Country Club, they should not, I mixed those up. It also should not harm the Canavo Spring. That was another big issue that came up. Will it harm the Canavo Spring? And the answer was no, it should not. And then, will blasting harm the local wells around the Highland Lake District and around its development? The answer by the experts was no, they will not. So, and they passed through both wetlands and planning and zoning after very careful scrutiny. They also agreed to do some water quality, putting water quality monitoring equipment at the suggestion of some of the experts of the town and the lake, and so they could watch it over the years and see if these facts continue to be facts, or if there's deteriorating, it may hurt the lake. There's a minimum recurring overhead to the town by these. They're going to do most of the infrastructure themselves. They're putting in the road. They're running the sewer and water up to their property. There's a lot of things they're paying for and have offered to pay for. So it's a minimum cost also to the town for implementation. It will add millions to the recurring tax base. There'll be another roughly 1,600 taxpayers up there, and it will add that. Plus the other taxes that'll come in from the golf course and the clubhouse, and from all kinds of permit fees, one-time permit fees, probably $1,000 a house or so, maybe a little less. They'll also have to pay a significant amount for water and sewer hookup fees. Water hookup fees in Winsted are $1,000 a house, and sewer hookup fees $1,000 a unit. And that's a lot of money when you're putting in 450, 550, almost 700 units. They'll pay a significant amount of recurring water and usage fees. One of the things that come out in the public hearings, as it always does, is we have plenty of water. We have a magnificent water facility in this town, built some years ago, and sewer capacity. We have enough sewer capacity, so we're in good shape there. And these developments will also provide jobs for the town and the surrounding areas. So it's going to take over the first 5 years of this development, and these developments are going to require a lot of people, put a lot of money into the town for jobs, for people to do the construction and do all the work, and same for all of the county and even the state to a certain extent, as they bring in people from around to help get this thing going. There'll be also some permanent jobs in there, taking care of the golf course and the clubhouse and the amenities and facilities. So this is very important that we get these jobs for the surrounding area. Now, water quality measuring devices, as I said earlier, will be placed around the projects for monitoring purposes, so that the town can monitor the year-to-year improvement here up at this lake. Now, I'd like to say, I still got a few minutes left, more than I thought I'd have at this particular time, but I want to say to you people at the lake, I don't know what kind of information you get about this when you're away. I'm not sure it's always the most accurate information, although I have no reason to question it. I don't read any of that information that they send to you, but a lot of good has been done by the town and the lake people to make sure the checks and balances were placed on these developments and projects. They did The first one did manage to pass through. The second one had a little bit of problem with density, and it was refused, and then it came back again, and it was still a little too dense for the planning and zoning people, and maybe even a little too far for some of our public services like the fire department and police department. But that has now been reduced to 225. The other night when I went to the planning and zoning meeting, the planning and zoning the group voted unanimously to get together with the developer and the town planner and whoever else and try to come up with a positive, a configuration that could pretty well possibly be agreed by the town and then put to a public hearing so people can vote on this. So usually when you go to these public hearings, you'll find they're mostly neighbors that are kind of very interested in what's happening and wanting to see it done properly, and they raise a lot of questions, and that's good because that's a good checks and balance. And often they also say a lot of things that are irrelevant, but that's natural. We're human beings. I'm always quiet at these meetings and I listen because I'm a systems analyst and I read the minutes and notes, and then I contemplate and ask experts and then try to form an opinion. So I've been to every single meeting of the first development, bar one, and I listened to all the testimony. It was difficult on me because my back hurt and everything else from the hard chairs sitting there for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours in a meeting. But I'm convinced that unless something we don't know about happens, these are not going to be a detriment to this town or to the lake. They're going to be, could be the biggest thing that ever happened to this town, because what they will do is allow us then to take the money that comes in from the taxes and begin to clean up the town, refurbish the town, get the schools brought up to specification, maybe even get a new school over the years, get the fire departments squared away, get the police department squared away, get enough people downtown where necessary. And some people argue we don't need any more people, but in some cases we may need a few more people. The developer has actually agreed to pay for people to work for the town to help monitor his project. So in that case, the town would probably hire consultants to keep an arm's length and have them double check on everything. So I think that's good. So if you can, try to find out more about these projects. Call me if you need to. I've got plenty of information and plans and all kinds of things I put out. Go down and talk to the inland wetlands and people. Go talk to the planning and zoning planning. Talk to the town manager. Talk to any of the selectmen. Some of the selectmen don't agree too much with these projects, but most of them do. So you'll get both sides of the story. Then make up your own mind. And I think you're going to find that it's going to take a long time to get any money in from these developments, but right now it's the only game in town. All the other avenues will be progressed by the Economic Development Commission, the town manager, and the selectmen, but none of them will bear fruit for 5 years or so, and 5 to 15 years. So we need to start planning now, not only for the town, but also for the lake. So when we do need these things fixed, because we're getting more and more deterioration all over the place, we will have some money to do it, and we will have some money to match bond offers that we get from various places. With that, I'd like to thank you very much, and Lydia, I hope you enjoy this lake forever. Thank you. Their questions and concerns. They have not been given any direction by the councilman. They've just been told to review the charter, get input from the people in the town, and then make any changes or suggest any changes they think might be interesting. So with that, I'll say it's past my bedtime. I've had a little cold in the last few days, so I'll be going home to bed early again. And thank you for watching.